Episode 77 of The Insiders. We are back and we are live. We have a guest for you, a very special guest, a World Tour surfer, our Rookie of the Year, even if he wasn't allowed it. This is Mr. Liam O'Brien joining us. We're going to jump straight into our chat with Liam about his new free surf edit called Wandering and his first year on tour. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Insiders. Returning, it's Mr. Liam O'Brien. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
That's all good. It's a pleasure. The pleasure is always ours. We wanted you back on for a couple of reasons. Actually, we was discussing asking you to come back on to try and get your point of view for the year that you've had on tour, because we spoke to you kind of before your year. And kind of to hear your thoughts, but then also you dropped one of the most insane edits I've seen in a good while, and we thought, even more perfect timing to get you to talk about that as well. So we can tackle both, but if we start with like the tour, I guess, just because that would probably be a bit quicker. How was your year in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I would have, unless you win the title, you're always going to say you want to do better. But I feel like I definitely had a bit more to give. But it was a good year in the sense of just getting to learn the tour. It's so different to the Challenger Series. You get long periods of lay days, really quality locations that I've never been before, a lot of them. So yeah, it was a big learning year. But really cool to just get past the cut and actually get the whole experience and get that year of experience under my belt as well. So yeah, I think whilst I could have done better overall, I feel like I got a lot out of it, and hopefully that'll help me spring into the next year and do a bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think from my point of view, watching you, it looked like you felt pretty comfortable almost straight away, like with the jersey on. And how was it actually having, because you essentially had a year off, requalified, and then you're there at Pipe. Like, how was it that first paddle out? Was your heart pumping?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's an event that I've looked would you say just admired for years and years. Like I never thought I'd actually surf in it. So to actually finally, after getting injured, to finally get out there and get a heat was just such a sort of cathartic feeling. It was like this whole process from the injury to get all the way back to there. And it was a nice sort of full circle. It's like I was at the beginning again. But it was really cool. The waves weren't too big, so it wasn't that intimidating. But it was a very special feeling just to get out there and get to surf a heat at Pipeline, such a historic place.
Yeah, good afternoon, Liam.
Darren, how are you, mate?
I'm good. Hey, was it bittersweet to know you missed like one of the best pipes in history, and then the next year it was small, or were you that stoked that you were actually able to compete that it didn't matter at all?
Oh, there was a sting in the moment. I remember when I got injured. I don't know if I told you guys this last time, probably did, but when I did the injury in the morning, it was pretty bad. It was quite backwashy and the wind wasn't quite right yet. And obviously I left the beach, went to hospital. And then once I'd gone through the whole process and they'd checked me into a bed, I chucked the TV on, they had the surfing on. And I was like, oh, well, I might as well have a look. I might as well have a look. It's torture, but I gotta see what it's like. And I just turned it on and this empty, perfect wave was just breaking. And I thought it was an ad break when they just show, some perfect waves at Pipe just to hype up the event. And it was just an empty wave that no one decided to go because it was an insider. And I was just like, oh my God, it's like as good as it gets. You got to be kidding me. So at the time, that was a full sting. I was so devastated. But after the whole year went past, just getting to compete was fantastic. I wasn't too bummed on the conditions or anything. I was just really genuinely happy to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And during the year, like, I wanted to ask, like, what is it something that like you didn't expect? Like, what was a big surprise to you? Like, whether it was like a wave or like how a person acted or anything like that.
I feel like a lot of the waves weren't too surprising. I had a fair idea of what they were like. For me, it was more just how the tour functions. I'm so used to being on the QS or the Challenger series where you show up and you pretty much just surf no matter what the waves are like. But on tour, obviously, they're trying to pick the eyes out of it and get the best conditions they can. So you have all these lay days. And I found it really hard to try and maintain my form and my momentum through the lay days because I had a few events where I'd have some good heats early on and then we'd go on hold for like a week and then you'd come back to the event and you'd be trying to do the right things and everything, but it's just was really hard to stay connected with your form. And I found every time I'd surf a heat after a string of lay days, I wouldn't surf. I wouldn't feel as good as I did in the earlier rounds. So that was a real surprise to me of just how to deal with those lay days. I remember watching event wraps and things when I was younger and hearing people talk about it that were on tour and the lay days, you got to know how to manage yourself, you got to switch off, blah blah blah. But I never really thought it was that big of a deal. It's just like, oh, you just get a day off and go and do some surfing somewhere else or whatever. But yeah, for some reason, I found that really tough.
So is that something you'd consider now working with potentially a professional over your next 3 to 4 months so that you can adapt better for next year?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely one of the big goals on the list for next year is just to have a good plan in place for lay days and for how I want to go about things. And yeah, not because this year I was saying to Matthew earlier, it was like a lot of learning and a lot of testing the waters with different things and different approaches. So I think next year, hopefully I can refine all those learnings into some formula and some solid practices that can hopefully lead to results. And yeah, the lay days will definitely be one of those things.
So then how do you manage this big 4-month lay day?
For me, it's a bit different because I know when it's going to be back on, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
Since the tour finished, I took a nice little break where I didn't do any training, just surfed if I felt like it, but if I didn't feel like I didn't bother, and kind of just had a holiday essentially. And then now I've sort of gone through a bit of a planning process and figured out how I want to use the time, set a few goals, things I want to get better at for next year. And then now I'm just starting to get into training. So the next few months will be dedicated to working on those goals and trying to sharpen up for next year.
Surf training or physical training?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. And do you kind of when the schedule's just been released and you've seen the changes for next year, obviously there's some strange changes, but like swapping JB for Cloudbreak's not an upgrade or a downgrade really, it's swapping a right to a left. And obviously your front side surfing at somewhere like JB, I mean, you got robbed this year, I'll say it, you don't have to. And it suits that style of wave. Do you look at Cloudbreak and see it as a new challenge, or is it something you already feel like you're pretty comfortable with?
No, it'll be a new challenge for sure. I don't think hasn't really been a wave like Cloudbreak on tour for a while, like a big open ocean left that can barrel, that can provide turns and all the rest. So yeah, I'll definitely be wanting to get over there and get a bit of practice in before the event. If something pops up this year, I'll maybe go. But otherwise, there's a fair gap. I won't be in the Olympics, so there's a fair gap between, I think it's Brazil and Fiji. So I'll be able to go early and put some time into it if I get past the cut, of course.
So have you been to Cloudbreak before?
I've been when I was pretty young on like a family trip, but not since then. So I've surfed it a few times, but yeah, it was so long ago that it's not fresh in the memory, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you notice that Jack and Diego, Dora, and JL Shianka were there like this week. Do you think that was a distinct planned trip because now it's on the tour, or that was like them there on sort of like a training run? I mean, not a training run, like a post-season holiday, as they're a bit of a team.
That I think that was a bit of a training run for sure. Now that it's on the schedule, those guys would have been eyeing off swells, and yeah, it looks like they scored some good waves. So yeah, I think everyone's probably got their eye on it, trying to get a bit of extra practice in there now. But I mean, with that said, it's only one event out of 9, so you also got to put the time into the other ones as well.
Like Sunset's probably a bigger priority nearly than Cloud Break, because strangely enough, with the new tour, if you get to Cloud Break, you're already set for the year after as well, where those first 5 events now seem to be really more crucial than any other first events have ever been.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can be a master of those first 5 events, you've got yourself a career set up, haven't you? So those ones definitely, they would be the most important. But with that said, if you want to go for the top 5 and you want to go for titles, then you're going to have to be looking beyond the cut as well, and you're going to have to be pretty skilled at all the spots and be able to perform everywhere. So, I mean, that's definitely where I'd like to head with it. So, yeah, I won't just be only looking before the cut, but yeah, I'd love to get past the cut first.
Yeah, so you're looking for top 5 and titles.
Yeah, I mean, might as well, right?
Exactly.
Got to shoot for the top.
No reason not to, especially with your surfing. What I'd say, maybe like last question on the tour, and then we'll go in and talk about your edit a little bit. But when I asked you about your surprises, I thought you might say something about the ranch because of how weird and different it is. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about how that event, from your perspective, how that works, and how, if that was a bit weird compared to nearly every other event you've ever done.
Yeah, the surf ranch is very unique, no doubt. I mean, obviously, aside from the obvious, it's in a pool, not the ocean. The way the wave breaks, I find, is a lot different to the ocean. I mean, you'd have to ask someone that's a bit more tuned into the mechanics of it than me, but I think because it's pushing water or pushing a wave through the water, like you could with your hand in a bathtub, the water in front of the wave is stagnant, and you don't have that water drawing up the face like you do in the ocean. So I find that you actually, as soon as you come out into the flats to set a bottom turn, you lose your speed really quick.
Right.
And I mean, whether that's actually the case, I don't know. I don't know for sure, but that's what feels like's happening. And it throws, for me, it like throws the timing off, and it's really tricky to figure out. But I'd actually done the event as a wild card in 2021. So I've had a bit of an idea of what to expect this time. If that was my first time at the pool, I would have said that's a massive surprise, because the very first time I surfed that pool, I was like ready to quit surfing. Just like I'm a kook out this wave. But
what result did you get there this year?
Oh, still a kook, still got dead last, but I actually got some okay scores this time. So
yeah, did you surf the night repechage then?
Nah, so everyone that got 4th in the first heat got cut straight away, and I got 4th straight out of there.
Remind me though, was it John and Gabby were, and someone else was in yours?
Yeah, I think my heat was Rio, Wader, John, and Gabby, and yeah, John got the score in his last wave. So yeah, I got sent packing pretty quick.
That's a pretty stacked 4-man first group.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely doesn't fill you with confidence when you see that draw. But it was cool. It was pretty awesome to have like, it's always awesome to have heats with those sorts of guys, because they just push you so much, and you can kind of see up close how they go about it and what they do, and where the level is. So yeah, it was a good learning experience.
I've got a quick little tour question too, because Punta Roca, El Salvador was your best result, wasn't it?
Yep.
That was semis?
Semis? Yeah, got a 3rd there.
Now, in that event, I watched it in the early heats and just thought, wow, you were just like obviously you made the semi, so I wasn't surprised at all. And and as an armchair critic, I felt like something unclicked for you in the semis. Did you feel that?
Yeah, definitely. That's I think that's probably a good example of what I was talking about earlier with the lay
Yeah, that
days.
had lay days, didn't it? I remember coming
Yeah.
into it.
So the first two, I think it was 2 days, 2 consecutive days, maybe. No, it must have been two because they finished in three. Um, they just ran back to back days, a few heats a day. And I just felt really tuned in to the wave and the way the swell was. And I knew what I was looking for, knew how I was going to surf the waves. Um, and yeah, just felt really like connected to the ocean. And then after the lay days, the swell changed. It was kind of this wind swelly type swell, and I tried my best to reconnect with it and do the beach analysis and the whole works and figure out how best to go about the heat. But I just didn't have that innate sense of like what's a good wave and what's not. Sometimes there's, especially when it's junky, there's certain waves that come through. You're like, oh, it's like it's a 50-50, it's right there. And you kind of, when you're unsure, when I'm unsure at least, I just feel like I've got a tendency to just pull the trigger and just go like, oh, fuck it, I'll just go. And I did that a few times that heat, and there'd be a real good one behind. And then I fell a couple of times, and Griffin absolutely ripped. He smoked me. So I mean, even if I was on the good ones, I had to be on the good waves that heat to get through. So yeah, like you said, I just kind of lost that connection with the ocean.
Yeah.
He'd just back 2 years in a row with finals, I think, there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Felipe,
Like if
wins.
that had been Burley on a junked up day, that's where you like what you're saying. That's where your experience can come in and say, "Well, I'm not going to go that one."
Yeah, pretty much. I just needed that. I don't know. I just need that little extra confidence with my wave knowledge to just sit there and really wait. Um, but yeah, I was just a bit off, to be honest. Like those other days, I just felt like really on, and then after the lay days, I just felt a little off. I just like my decision making was a bit off. My surfing was a bit off, and yeah, it just didn't quite work out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because he could be thinking the exact same thing. And like you say, they could have been 50-50 waves. And just the toss of a coin that your 50-50 wave didn't go good and his 50-50 wave did go good. And it looks like he knew what he was doing or whatever, but it could have been the exact same as well, which is quite a like it. Sometimes they look like they're fully in the knowledge and then actually everyone's just guessing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so yeah, like you said, sometimes there's just that element of, I don't know, I don't want to call it luck, but there's a bit of that where just
It
sometimes you
is.
can just take a crap wave and it turns into a really good one, and you can't set
Whereas,
a foot wrong. And then some days you think you're doing all the right things and it's just not happening. So,
yeah, for
but then
sure. I
there's
mean,
there's ways to. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say no, for sure. Like you see it on the other side as well. You see someone take off on a wave that looks to be the wave of the day, and it suddenly just clamps or shuts down or something, and you're like, well, he had to go or they had to go, and it's the other way around. Someone takes off on a wave, and you're like, what are they doing? And then next thing, you know, the wave's picked up, it's got a nice bend to it or something, and suddenly they've locked in at 8, and you're like, oh, where did that come
Yeah,
from?
yeah.
I took my mother-in-law one time here to the quick pro final, and that was like a perfect example. It was a year like that. It was 10 foot just out in front, down from the house, Liam, Kunu, and Kelly was getting tens like the whole morning, and like Kelly, it was like 8 foot plus right barrels and everything, and by the time he got to the final, then Mick got like two tens and Kelly got
Yeah,
like a four and a three. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
at,
exactly.
at one stage, the ocean just gives or it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whether you like it or not, there's always going to be that bit of uncertainty with the ocean and that little bit of luck or whatever you want to call it. Obviously, there's ways to really put the odds in your favor, but yeah, sometimes it's just not your day. But there was, with
Especially,
that said though, that El Salvador heat, like looking back, there was some wave selection errors I made, and then some surfing errors that I made that I kind of fixed up as well. So I
Well, it's
think,
back on tour, so
mm,
next year
you could go
yeah,
one
try and
better.
you'll have that extra knowledge.
get hopefully try and get some redemption.
Um, what obviously one thing about it as well is the time. You know, you've only got 30, 35, 40 minutes in a heat, and the ocean's funny. But what you don't have a time restriction on is when you get to make free surf edits. And your latest edit, which is called Wandering, which everyone needs to go and watch if they haven't already. It's making some big waves as such, with no pun intended, with some big reviews from, you know, Stab, and a lot of people are talking it up. And I said earlier, I think it's one of the best things I've seen in a good while. How fun was that?
Oh, thanks so much for the kind words. Yeah, it was good fun making. It was a good switch off from the comps. I think a lot of the time, not a lot of time, but it can get pretty tough around the comps. There's a lot of people. Obviously, there's all the athletes surfing, and they're real hungry for waves. And then there's, on top of that, there's just all the locals, all the people that are there to watch the event, and everyone's just this big melting pot of people out in the lineup. And it can get pretty frustrating when you just want to get a few warm up waves, whatever. Um, and yeah, I was a bit jaded at times, especially on those legs of back to back events. Just like, man, I just want to go and surf and get some good waves. So when I get little gaps between the events, I do my best to try and track down a swell and go and chase some good fun waves. And yeah, I got to film it as well, which was cool. And then that sort of helped me reset for the events. But for me, that was just such fun. Like just going surfing, a couple of friends, and just trying to score good waves. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Was some of those sessions in and around a competition, like your WA section?
Yeah. A lot of it was around the comps. I mean, this year the WSL was pretty cursed. I feel like a week prior to the events, it would be absolutely pumping, and then the events would suck. So that was a bit of a shame. But yeah, for free surfing, it was pretty good. So there's a few sessions from Super Tubes before the CT there. There's some stuff from France when I came and stayed with you, Brody.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then yeah, like the box was real fun during the Margie's comp. They kind of said before the event they weren't going to move there, so there wasn't actually that many guys surfing the box and girls. There's a few, but most people were kind of focusing on main break. But it was just that good. I was like, oh, I got to go and get a couple over there. So yeah, a lot of it, and then a bit of chopes as well. So yeah, a lot of it was off the back of events. But I'd either try and go early or stay a bit later, or if it worked out, just get a couple in the lead up to the contest.
Yeah, and
There doesn't seem. Sorry, Matt. There
you go.
doesn't seem to be any residual hesitancy in taking off on slabs after the foot injury.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I had
all
to
in the
get over
past,
that.
no problem.
No, not too much. No, it feels pretty solid, so I don't have too many demons about it. But
When
yeah,
you see
definitely
that
work.
big slabbing right or left in this thing coming up for you, your initial reaction is just you're going to send it.
Oh, not always.
Okay, it
Definitely
doesn't
crapping
seem
myself.
like that.
Oh, I didn't put too many of the pullbacks in.
You
But
didn't
yeah,
put
no, definitely scared. But I don't know. It's just that it's like anything. It's just that challenge of trying to push yourself a little bit and do something that you think you couldn't, and you get a real big thrill as a reward.
you said about not putting too many of the pullbacks in. That was something I wanted to chat about quickly as well. Is actually you edited it, or you edited or had a hand in a lot of the editing of it, from what I believe. Earlier this year, I I kind of made an edit with my good friend Jake, who filmed and edited the whole thing, and it took him like 6-7 weeks in between a 9 to 5 job. And he was saying it was really, really tricky because almost every single day he was seeing it closer and closer and and it made it hard for him to judge like what were the good clips, what were the bad clips, what he should put in, and he was needing me to come in and see it with fresh eyes. Did you find that to be a bit of a struggle, like when you was editing it?
Yeah, for sure. But I was lucky. I had Baron Hall and Nick Coakley, who were two like really good filmers and editors themselves, assist. So definitely didn't do it all myself. They made it look professional and gave me a lot of help, which was cool and really nice of them. But yeah, the more like you said, the more you look at it and you just like study it and you're making little cuts and trying to match things up to the song, and just like watching it back and forth over and over and over. It just like gets to the point where it becomes so mundane, and you just know exactly, every clip, you've seen it all 50 times, and you're just like, oh man, I don't even know if this is any good. It's just like I don't want to watch this anymore. It's just, I detest it. But I guess that's the sad part of the editing process. Like by the time you like release the clip, you kind of like, I don't even know if this is any good. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm so sick of watching it. I hope people like it, but far out.
So how do you know these two guys?
Baron manages me as well, so I actually kind of met him through that, and then we've become pretty good friends. And he films and everything. So that's how I know Baron. And then Nick, I've just filmed with forever. He lives on the Goldie as well. We've just been mates for a long time now, and he's helped me work on my last like 4 clips I've made. So yeah, I've known both of them for a fair while now.
So that they are both professional in that area. How do you pay these guys, or do you guys get a budget from Billabong, or do they use that? For example, Baron, would he use that in the fact that if it's promoting your career, which is making you better, it's going to benefit him in that sense?
I just paid them both for the like whatever rate that they wanted out of my own pocket.
Yep.
But they were cool about it. Like they knew I didn't have a budget or anything, so they didn't like charge through the roof. But then obviously, it's got to make it work for them too. They got to stand on the beach and
that's
and film.
It's a job, isn't
exactly.
it? If they're doing that, they're not doing anything else. I ask this for like any young surfers that are listening, because obviously now it's the future of the world edits. Apart from obviously getting on the CT, but you see guys like Noah Dean. I saw Dane Reynolds, a couple of those guys that are here this week, who are like the world champs in surf edits. But if you're just a young guy, you can't really. You need to find a mate. You got to start really kind of like that, I think, at the start, unless your parents are loaded, which happens as well.
Yeah, no, it's a tricky one because it's like content media is just more sought after than ever, but then budget for it is more scant than ever. So it's like it's a pretty hard one. But I think you just got to get creative, and it's got to be something that you're passionate about too. I mean, when I first started, like my mates and I would just like we'd have a few of us and just swap film, like set the camera up, 20 minutes each, swap around. One of us would film, the rest would surf, and then once your 20 minutes is up, move on. So you can get creative and do stuff like that. I know a few guys do that, do the odd swap film, but it is tricky. You just like you said, you got to get lucky. I was just lucky to have some good friends that were pretty talented, but I think if you're really into it, you'll find a way. Like we just had a little handy cam and we just set it up and like I don't know, there'd be 3 of us and we do half an hour on the beach each, and the rest you'd be surfing.
Yeah, for sure. You just kind of need to luck out, get a mate who can't swim and doesn't like surfing but loves filming.
Yeah.
So saying, and
definitely it definitely gets to a point where you're like, the swap filming gets a bit old and you're like, it's bumping. I'm not sitting on the beach at all. I gotta maximize this session. But yeah.
We've had a little bit of that this week, haven't we, Matt?
Oh yeah. Definitely. With everything, it's like like
I was pushing the podcast back every day because the forecast just kept looking better and better.
Oh, and I understand that. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't understand that.
Yeah. I thought
Push
that
it.
was right. Hey, so
Yeah.
that led into another question, which I wanted to ask, which I think is also really interesting to, well, I know it is to me because I've kind of seen like you guys and surfers before you and everything. And also you're kind of highly touted as academic, which I've read you say that you kind of benefited from that. It's good to be known, but you know what it's like with marketing. People say, okay, he's a smart guy. So now they're all going to want to, like, it's kind of easy media to just keep saying, "Oh, Liam's the smart guy." If you did take the academic route, you would have probably got into engineering or, like you said, medicine and stuff, which are quite well-paying jobs, especially in Australia. Um, at the moment, you being on the CT and still sponsored by Billabong, you're able to make a half decent living. You're able to live off what you're making from surfing to the same extent you would be if you were engineering?
Yeah, at the moment for sure. Very lucky to be making a living off surfing. That's been the dream forever. But I quickly got to clarify. I was never getting into medicine. That's another one of those examples.
Okay, that's what I thought I'd
That's
read.
that's been blown out of proportion. Yeah. Ethan did write that. When he sent the draft through, I was like, oh no, that's not true. But he just left it in there. I was like, oh, all right.
And obviously,
But yeah,
obviously, surfing's at the moment in your life, especially as a surfer, probably a little bit more exciting. It depends if you're a brain surgeon, but it's you'd be willing to take a little bit of a hit on salary, wouldn't you? If it means you can chase perfect waves.
oh for sure. I mean, surfing's the number one priority, and hopefully it always will be. So yeah, right now I'm lucky to be able to do that full time and focus completely on that. But obviously that's gonna end at some stage. Hopefully it's not too soon. But yeah, and I think when I get to that point, I'm hoping that I can get a job that's interesting, but that also is flexible enough that I can keep surfing. That's always the goal, just to surf as much as possible and get as many good waves as I can.
we know you're going
And
to be
suffice.
the next, or the person who is going to be a wave pool engineer and bringing them all over the world, and then you can surf and work.
Yeah. Any scheme, just devise a scheme where you can just surf as much as possible.
So then is which would be in your field, the mathematical field, what's the element of working out how much you need to spend each year traveling around the world? Because it's not a cheap addiction either, is it?
No, I mean tour is expensive. Like the prices get hiked around the events because it's a popular time of year, usually wherever you're traveling. And then flights aren't cheap, as you know. Um, all the little bits in between, food, transfers, list goes on. So yeah, it's not cheap. I think on the tour, you can definitely it's pretty viable. You can definitely get ahead on the tour, but the Challenger Series is hard, man. Like that tour, I feel for the guys. And then obviously I was on it for a long time, and maybe hopefully not soon, but maybe back there. So that's the one that really kills you, where you're like, man, I'm going backwards here. I'm running out of time. I got to try and get up to that next level, but I think it's slowly getting better. The sport seems to be growing. I mean, the Challenger Series is way better. It's way more of a slick tour than the QS ever was. So I think that's a great step forward. And hopefully the interest in it only grows. They're doing a good webcast at all the events, and they're actually pretty entertaining to watch as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully that grows. And then with that, there's a bit more prize money to be handed out as well.
For sure. Have you got eyes on Portugal? We was obviously Darren's just had George Pitta, Joel Vaughan, and Alistair Reginaldo stay for a few 8 days, 7, 8 days. And I mean, I got to see them
12.
surf 12 days. I got to see them surf like pumping Estanio one day and pumping the Gravier one day as well. And they were going mental. I felt so sorry for George. He snapped a board one day and then creased two in a day out of his six boards, and he was off it. Like, I felt so bad for him. But have you got an eye on Portugal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's such a crazy tour. There's so many talented surfers. I mean, I look at that tour and go, wow, there's like so many guys there that are at the tour level. Um, but it's just that competitive that, there's only those 10 spots that are on offer, and there's a lot more than 10 people that deserve those spots. So yeah, that's why it's so interesting too. It's so fun to watch. But yeah, always supporting the fellow countrymen, the Aussie lads. But got some really good friends from a lot of the other countries on the Challenger series as well. So I'll definitely be tuning in, be glued to the set.
So I'm going to put you on the spot quick and ask you then, like, who do you think is going to win the Portugal Challengers Series event? You could go with a heart pick rather than a head pick.
Heart pick. I feel like Morgs could win the men's division. Morgan Sibley.
Oh,
he's been surfing really good, and he's at the level. He's been in the top 5 before, and he's just had that crazy roller coaster run. But I think he's surfing really good, and he deserves to be on tour. And I don't know. I think that wave suits him, and yeah, we'll see. But yeah, definitely Morgs. But I mean, I don't want to make a pick. I mean, so many good friends that are absolutely ripping on that
90
tour.
of them.
There's so many guys.
No,
and then in the girls,
Morgs is a good pick.
Yeah,
with the women, we have to pick Sophie McCulloch because she's been on the poddy a few times. Well, she's been on the poddy a time. She's from Daz's hometown, so and she's an Aussie, so Sophie's locked in for the women already.
Yeah, absolutely.
The forecast for them doesn't look that good, actually. Like we've just had 2 weeks non-stop swell. It hasn't been all time, but non-stop swell. And I did notice that we were checking the forecast the whole time they were there, and I kind of saw it 2 weeks out, and just intuition where you think we've got too much swell coming through, it will stop.
Yeah.
And it looks like it stopped, but
the tap's been turned off.
Yeah. But like they had a couple of years, bigger waves there. So it's probably also fate that they were going to get smaller ones.
Yeah. That sucks. But I mean, I'm sure they'll get waves. I remember there was a day, it must be direction dependent, but there was a day there last year. It was only small, but it was probably the most rippable day of the whole comp.
Yeah.
And I think it was Edgard Grogia absolutely went nuts, just like ripped the bag, got a couple of 8s, I think. But that day in particular was really fun. So, I mean, if they get waves like that, it'd still be a pretty good contest.
Yeah.
Just those high tides when it's small that get pretty tricky.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much for your time, Liam. I think we'll wrap it there so you can get on with your evening and Darren can go and have a coffee. But
I'm actually going surfing, believe it or not.
Yeah, I'm about to go and have a look as well. But thanks so much, Liam. Really appreciate your time again. That edit's sick. Everyone needs to go watch it. And I'm sure
congratulations.
Thanks so much, boys. Appreciate the chat. Go and enjoy the surf.
And enjoy the Queensland. Enjoy Queensland's flat spring.
Yeah, can't wait.
Take care, mate. Have a good day.
Thank you, boys. See you later.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.